Hello everyone! So, it has been a while once again since I've made a video, and I'd kind of like to talk about something very major that happened in my life recently, and it was life-changing and sudden and unexpected. I'm gonna get into it. This is like a story time type video, I guess, and just as a disclaimer, if you're sensitive to talk about like parents' death, obviously you've seen the title of this video, so you know what the topic's going to be. But if you're sensitive to death or parents' deaths or talking about death basically, please don't watch this video because it's pretty much what I'm going to be talking about. Begin the story. As you guys know, probably about 9 months ago now or so, I moved back home. I was living with my boyfriend in an apartment, and we broke up, and so I moved back home with my dad because I didn't have a job, so I didn't have enough money to get my own place again. I've been living here with him ever since, so it was since October. I think it was like mid-October that I moved back here. And this is a house that I grew up in. This is like the room that I've had since I was born. And I've been living with my dad here, just me and him and our 2 cats and then my dog. And people have always said that everything happens for a reason, and I never really believed that. I kind of just thought that was a way of comforting yourself, and it might be that way. I feel like now that I've lost my dad, the fact that I was able to spend that time with him, and the fact that my boyfriend dumped me really unexpectedly, and it really affected me a lot. It really broke my heart. It all kind of makes sense to me now. It seems like that was how it was supposed to be because I got to spend the last 9 months or so with my dad every day, and neither of us were working. I was just focusing on my therapy for my BPD, which has been going really well. And so we were home alone a lot together. He had quit his job because he was pretty miserable working it. He was a cook at like a bar and grill, and they were always short-staffed, and they always had really huge caterers that like him and another guy, or sometimes just him, were responsible for, like hundreds of people caterers. So he had quit his job, and we spent a lot of time together just at home. I talked to him a lot. I opened up to him about a lot of different things, and I told him straight up how I am as a person, because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on here, but my family's a bit more old-fashioned than I am, so they're kind of like against tattoos and me being bisexual and my piercings and the weird hair I would do and stuff like that. They're kind of like, they've never really been that accepting, but these past 9 months, specifically with my dad, I was able to be incredibly open with him about who I am as a human being, and that was really great. I felt like I got to connect with him on a really deep level, and he told me a lot of old stories. Some of them I've already heard a lot, but I never got tired of hearing his stories. I've never been that type of person, even when I was a kid, that didn't want to hear my family's stories. Fast forward to about a month ago, my dad had gotten sick. He is a was a wonderful man, but he did have a drinking problem. He was an alcoholic. He drank more than a 6-pack a day. I think it was even more than I ever saw. He tried to hide it from me because all through my life I've begged him to stop. He never got violent or anything like that when he was drunk at all, or rude or anything. He would be a little bit annoying, but he was never a bad drunk. He just drank too much, and it really worried me because I knew that at the rate he was drinking, his alcoholism was going to be what killed him one day. And I told him that many times and cried and begged him to stop. And finally I kind of just accepted that I would never be able to make him stop. So I tried to just live with it and not say much and just let him make his own decisions, because he is an adult and you can't help an addict unless they want it, and he didn't want it. He said that he would rather keep drinking and die than stop drinking. Like, honest to God, that's how much he loved his beer. So he had problems with his pancreas a few times because of his alcoholism. He had been admitted into the hospital twice for pancreatitis, and in April, it was probably April 26th or 25th perhaps, that he started getting sick, and he was vomiting a lot and he had stomach pains. He told me that he thought that it was the pancreatitis coming back, and originally he had wanted me to take him to the ER basically, and he kept putting it off. He kept saying, no, we'll do it after I take a nap, and then I got up from the nap, and then he still didn't want to go. And I think that he was kind of hiding how sick he really felt as well. He had a lot about his health from me because he didn't want to worry me because of my anxiety and everything. He really did not keep me in the loop as far as what his health was doing. And he also did not like going to the doctor, so he would put it off at all costs. He hated especially hospitals. I just don't think that he wanted to go to the hospital, and I don't think he knew how bad he really was doing. This is a little bit hard to talk about. Sorry. So I was laying down for a nap on Friday night. It was April 27th. And the funny thing is that 27's always been a really important number to my dad. He was born on the 27th, and there's a lot of instances where 27 came up in his life, and that was his like favorite number. And on April 27th, I laid down for a nap kind of late at night. My sleep schedule's really messed up, so it was probably about 9 p.m. I was just gonna sleep for a couple hours, get up, take a shower, and then let my hair dry and go to bed. So I laid down for the nap, and I woke up and I could hear my dad in the kitchen. It sounded like he was kind of like making some noise, kind of rustling things around, going through stuff a little bit, sounds like that, and he was in the fridge. And I was just sitting in my bed because I had just gotten up from my nap. I think I was just looking at my phone or something stupid. And then he closed the door to the fridge, and I didn't hear anything more after a certain point, so I figured that he had gone back into the living room to sit down in his chair. It was almost 3 a.m. that he was doing this. He couldn't sleep because he was in so much pain. Sound stopped in the kitchen, and I let a little bit more time pass, and then I decided to get up and say hi to him, you know, because I thought he was sitting up in the living room because the TV was on. And so I went into the living room, and I looked to the left at his chair, where he always sat, the rocking chair, and he wasn't there. And that kind of like instantly sent some sort of sick feeling through my stomach. And so I looked to the right into his bedroom to see if he was laying in bed, and he wasn't there either. And the house was dead silent. I stood there for a second, and I thought, why is it so quiet? There's nowhere that he would have gone at 3 a.m. when he's ill. And I thought maybe he had gone out the back door just to stand out in the fresh air for a moment. So I went into the kitchen, and he was laying on the kitchen floor, face down. I thought that he was having a medical emergency and that he had passed out. So I went over to him, immediately I was just like, "Dad," and I went down to him on the floor and put my hand on his back, and the instant that I touched him, I knew that he was dead. I knew that he was dead the second that I put my hand on his back, because he was cold. He wasn't ice cold or anything. He was just colder than a normal human would be. He was a little bit stiff as well. Not much, because it had probably been 30 minutes. I still tried to wake him up. I was shaking his back and just saying, "Dad, please wake up, please, just get up, please." And he was completely unresponsive. It was the strangest thing. His body, when someone's laying there with dead weight, completely dead weight, just the way they look laying there is wrong. It's off. I had never seen a dead body in real life. I research a lot of true crime and a lot of murder cases, so I've seen a lot of stuff, and I'm also on the internet, so I've seen a lot of bodies in photographs, you know, of strangers that are involved in these cases. I've never seen a human body in person, and I've never had someone that close to me pass away. When I couldn't get him to wake up, I immediately just wanted to lay down, go back to sleep, and hope that when I got up again it would all have been a dream. But I knew that I couldn't do that. I knew that I needed to call 911. So I got my phone from my room and I called 911. And I sounded like a child on the phone. They picked up and asked me where the emergency was at, and the first thing I blurted out was, I went to the kitchen and my dad's out cold laying on the floor, and I think he might be dead. I talked to them. They wanted me to try CPR, but I tried to roll my dad over and I couldn't do it. I was trying to do it with one hand because I had the phone in the other hand, and I told them, I really don't think he's alive. He is cold. There's no heartbeat. That was another thing. It was strange because in the movies, when someone is suspected to be dead, you always see them like check here for a pulse. I didn't even think to do that. I was just so panicked. I put my hand on his back and left it there for a few moments, and I couldn't feel a heartbeat. And then I put my hand by his face to see if I could feel any breath coming from his nose, and there wasn't any. So that was my method of figuring out that he was dead. I didn't check his pulse like here, like a normal person in the media and everything. I let the 911 operator know that I was pretty sure that he was dead and that CPR wouldn't help at this point. And so they told me to just leave him and not touch him anymore, because obviously when a death is reported, they have to figure out first and foremost if it was a natural death or if there was foul play involved in some way, or like drugs or anything, you know. So they told me that I should call someone. They asked if there was anyone I could call that would come be with me, and I said, yeah, my grandma. So they told me to hang up and call her and have her come to be with me, and I called her, and it was about probably 3:15 or so. My grandma answered the phone. I was really happy that she answered because it was so late. I'm sure that she had an idea that something was wrong, because I mean, it's not really normal to get a phone call at 3 a.m. So she answered it, and I told her, I need you here now. I think my dad is dead. And probably a minute after I hung up with my grandma, police and the firefighters and everybody arrived. It was really quick, which I was pretty thankful for. And there was so many cops. I don't even know how many there were. I went into shock as soon as I found him, so I kind of just shut down. I wasn't even crying. I wasn't hysterical. I wasn't crying. I was just kind of like, I went into productive mode where it was just like, okay, I need to get the information to the police. I need to make sure he's dead. I need to get people here. I need to call, you know, I kind of just went into autopilot and got stuff done instead of falling apart right then. So the police came. They went and checked him. And I asked, is he really dead? Even though I knew it. And they said, yeah. And so he was pronounced dead at 3:36 a.m. And I remember that specifically because they said it a couple of times. And also because, coincidentally, that's kind of like a big number in the Poppy/Mars Argo fan base.
3:36? 3:36? Oh no, I'm late. I can't believe it's 3:36.
But that's a whole another topic. They sent a chaplain from the hospital, I believe, which was basically kind of like just somebody there to help with grief right afterwards. And she did a prayer with my grandma and my mom because my grandma came, and then she called my mom too, which I wasn't in contact with my mom. I had actually cut her out of my life. So that was my first time really being around her in months. My mom fell apart more than I did, and they've been divorced for like 16 years now, but she just absolutely fell apart. She was hysterical. I didn't cry for hours afterward. We had to wait for the medical examiner to come to make sure that it was in fact a natural death, and the medical examiner was already busy at another location. We had to wait for quite a while for the medical examiner to actually show up to declare that it was a natural death and that there wasn't any trauma or anything like that. It was a few hours, and they were getting ready to remove the body. They asked if I wanted to see him again and say like a prayer and just say goodbye. And I was so traumatized already from finding him dead, because that was actually probably my biggest fear in life, was finding my dad or my grandma dead, and it happened. So I was in shock and I was pretty traumatized. So I thought that because I had already seen him and felt myself, and I held his hand for a moment too as the police and everybody were coming, and I rubbed his head and I just said, "I'm so sorry, Dad." You guys, I was always a daddy's girl, you know. I've never been close to my mom, and I was extremely close to my dad my whole life. From the time I was a kid, we did a lot together. We would go on adventures. He would take me to the park. He was the one I wanted to live with when my parents divorced. He was one of my best friends. I was sitting on the couch with the chaplain right before they were about to take his body away. And she just said, "He's not there anymore. It's just his body." And the second that she said that he's not here anymore, I just burst into tears and broke down. My dad was a genuinely good person. He was the type of guy, which he did do these things, he told me about it, who would see other guys hassling a drunk woman at a bar, trying to get her basically, like rape her, and my dad would go over and break it up and stop it and take the woman home and just make sure that she got home safely and never put a hand on her You know, he always helped people, and my dad was not rich at all. He always was pretty poor. He didn't ask for much or want much. He wore clothing until they were falling apart, and you know, he was really stubborn about replacing things like shoes or wallets. He would just keep using his old ones. But even so, he would give people so much, take care of people. He was such a nice guy. I wish everybody could have known my dad. He was so positive and easygoing, and he was so nice to anyone that he would interact. I got a hold of the bank that my dad uses, and the tellers there were in tears when I told them that he had passed away, because they had gotten attached to him. And today I called his auto insurance, and just from talking on the phone with my dad through the years, he was devastated when he heard that my dad had passed away. Like, my dad, he was amazing. I respected him so much. I have so much respect for him. He did so many crazy things when he was younger, stuff that he didn't even tell me about to this day, and I'm 26 now. I had to have my 26th birthday without him. He died on April 28th, and my birthday was May 12th. I had no idea. He got sick, and 2 days later he was gone. Just like that. Ever since it happened, I've been feeling like it shouldn't have happened, and like something's wrong, like it wasn't right. There should have been something that I could have done to prevent it. So I don't have any brothers or sisters, so I've been responsible for everything. I'm in our house, my dad's house, and I guess it's my house now. He left me everything. Losing a parent is so stressful because there's so much that you have to take care of right after it happens, but you're so devastated. It's just so hard. And I'm really thankful that my family have come together and really helped me a lot. It's just unreal. It still doesn't feel like it happened. I mean, I felt his body, and it still doesn't feel real. I still feel like I'm gonna wake up and it was all a nightmare, or he's just gonna show back up again like it was a glitch. It's just so hard to come to terms with the fact that I'm gonna have to live the rest of my life without my dad. He was 63. When he passed away in the kitchen, he was making a cup of tea. He had his cup out with the tea bag, brewing, steeping. The jar of sugar that is in the kitchen was in his hand, and it fell when he fell and spilled all over the floor. So he was in the middle making tea, and the medical examiner said that it looks like he just died instantly. And of course, being me, the person that overanalyzes everything, I wanted to really understand his death. They weren't going to do an autopsy, obviously, because it was a natural death. So I looked into pancreatitis a bit. I found some like scholarly journals and trials and clinical things like that, articles basically, saying that acute pancreatitis can result in sudden, unexpected death, which is caused by organ failure. and that's what I believe happened to him. I'm kind of just hoping that by sharing this story, people who have gone through something similar will feel better, and maybe people who aren't aware of what it's like to find a parent passed away will have a little bit of insight. I'm responsible for a house suddenly, which is really strange. I'm really proud of myself though, because right after his death I felt an immense amount of peace, because I knew that I had spent a lot of time with him recently, and it was good that he wasn't working at the job that he hated when he died, that he got some time off basically to live as a retired person, and he didn't want to die slowly in the hospital, and he was one of those people that was always like, I hope I die before I get old, you know, like the song. He didn't want to get really old and waste away. So I found a lot of peace in the way that he died, even though it was so unexpected, because he wasn't in a lot of pain. It was pretty quick, and he wasn't in a hospital, which he hated, even though going to the hospital probably could have saved his life. And I think about that every day. Just another message as well for everybody out there who's watching this. Please go to the doctor when you're very ill. Please don't put off important things. If you have intense pain, or you're uncontrollably just vomiting all the time, or something strange happens to your body that you don't normally see happen, I would go to the doctor, because if you wait even a couple of days, it can be enough sometimes to result in you losing your life. And I know that the doctor and hospitals aren't fun to be in. Sometimes you gotta suck it up and deal with it, because sometimes you can die. And that's what happened to my dad. He put off going to the hospital. And I blame myself sometimes, because I feel like I should have made him go. But I didn't know how bad it was. He didn't really tell me. And I didn't think that he was gonna pass away. It was just so shocking to me. I didn't think that that was even a possibility, to be honest with you. It felt like he had years left. Life is very unexpected, and life is very, very precious. And this whole experience has put everything in perspective for me. It feels like it's completely changed my mindset and my outlook on life. I feel like I've really used this as a opportunity to grow and learn, but I am still completely devastated. I'm doing my best to make the most out of the cards I've been dealt, and kind of just look at it as an opportunity to grow as a person, because unfortunately most people end up having to deal with their parents' death in their lifetime, assuming that they don't die first. I know that my only option is just to keep going and get through it somehow. That's my experience losing my dad a month ago. And it was the most painful thing I've ever been through in my life. And I've been through some shit. And I'm just happy that I got to know him. I'm glad that I was able to have a dad like that. I got really, really, really lucky with my dad. I'm all over the place, so I'm kind of just rambling. I'm kind of a bit dissociated right now, because it's really painful to talk about this, and I'm still a bit traumatized from it all. So I'm kind of out of it. I'm all over the place. My brain's strange. I hope that once I edit it, it all kind of goes together in a nice way, but I apologize if it's hard to follow what I'm saying. Please enjoy life, and please take care of yourself. Thank you for watching.